Captain Jennifer Adams stared at the monitor in front of her, her coffee growing cold beside her keyboard. The numbers didn't make sense. They hadn't made sense for the past 3 days, but now they were getting even stranger. "Dr. Wright," she called out, not taking her eyes off the screen. "Could you look at these readings again?" Peter Wright shuffled over from his workstation, his worn sneakers squeaking against the polished floor of the deep space monitoring station. He adjusted his glasses and leaned in close to the screen, his eyes widening as he processed the data. "This can't be right," he muttered, reaching for the keyboard. His fingers flew across the keys, pulling up more data streams. "The gravitational readings from the Kuiper belt are all wrong. It's like something's bending space out there." Jennifer nodded slowly. "That's what I thought too. But look at the pattern." She pointed to a series of peaks and valleys in the data. "This isn't random. These fluctuations are happening in exact intervals." The monitoring station, buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, hummed with the sound of powerful computers. Screens lined the walls, most showing normal space traffic, satellites, debris, and the usual cosmic background radiation. But the screen in front of Jennifer and Peter showed something entirely different. "Should we alert Admiral Morrison?" Peter asked, running a hand through his graying hair. Jennifer checked her watch. It was 3 a.m., and the Admiral wouldn't appreciate being woken up unless they were absolutely sure. But these readings, they were unlike anything she'd seen in her 15 years of space monitoring. "Run it through the pattern recognition software one more time," she decided. "If we get the same results, we'll call him." Peter nodded and started the analysis. The computer churned through the data, comparing the strange gravitational patterns against every known natural phenomenon in its database. After 5 minutes, the result popped up on screen. No match found. Jennifer reached for the secure phone on her desk. As she dialed, Peter continued to analyze the data, his face growing more concerned with each passing minute. "Admiral Morrison, this is Captain Adams at Deep Space Monitoring Station Alpha. Sir, I apologize for the early call, but we've detected something you need to see." 30 minutes later, Admiral Frank Morrison strode into the monitoring station, his uniform crisp despite the hour. His presence immediately commanded attention from the small night shift crew. "Show me," he ordered without preamble. Jennifer pulled up the main display, projecting the data onto the largest screen in the room. "The anomalies began 3 days ago, sir. At first, we thought they were instrument errors, but we've confirmed the readings across multiple stations. Something is manipulating space itself at the edge of our solar system." Morrison studied the display, his expression unreadable. "And you're certain this isn't natural?" "The patterns are too precise, sir," Peter chimed in. "We're seeing mathematical sequences that couldn't occur naturally. Whatever this is, it's artificial and massive in scale." The Admiral was quiet for a long moment, his jaw working as if he was chewing on a particularly tough piece of information. Finally, he turned to Jennifer. "Captain Adams, what you're about to hear is classified at the highest levels," he said. 6 months ago, we detected similar anomalies near Saturn. They vanished before we could properly study them, but they left behind trace radiation that matched nothing in our scientific database." Jennifer felt her pulse quicken. "Why weren't we informed, sir?" "Because it coincided with the initiation of Project Terminus," Morrison replied. "And that project doesn't officially exist." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Everyone had heard whispers about Project Terminus, the massive construction project in high Earth orbit that no one would officially acknowledge. "Sir," Peter spoke up, his voice shaking slightly. "These readings, they're getting stronger. Whatever's causing them is either getting bigger or getting closer," Jennifer finished. Morrison nodded grimly. "Captain Adams, I'm reassigning you effective immediately. You'll be briefed on Project Terminus in full. Dr. Wright, you'll be joining her. We've suspected for some time that humanity might not be alone in the universe. Now it seems we're about to get proof." The next 12 hours passed in a blur of activity. Jennifer and Peter were flown to a secure facility in Nevada, where they were introduced to a team of scientists and military personnel all working on Project Terminus. What they learned there changed everything they thought they knew about humanity's place in the universe. Project Terminus wasn't just a defensive system or a weapon. It was humanity's answer to cosmic threats they hadn't even confirmed existed yet. Deep in the facility, Jennifer stared in awe at the holographic display showing the true scale of what they'd built in orbit. "It's beautiful," she whispered, watching the massive station rotate slowly in the projection. "But why build something this big if we weren't sure we'd need it?" "Because some of us knew we would," Morrison answered from behind her. "Throughout human history, there have been incidents, unexplained events, patterns that suggested we weren't alone. Project Terminus was built because humanity needed insurance." Peter studied the technical specifications scrolling past. "These power readings, they're theoretical. We shouldn't be able to generate this kind of energy." 2 years ago, you would have been right," Morrison agreed. "But necessity breeds innovation. When we found the first traces of something out there, watching us, we pushed our science further than anyone thought possible." A young lieutenant burst into the room, his face pale. "Admiral, the anomalies. They're multiplying. We're picking up similar readings near Mars now." Morrison's face hardened. "How many?" "7 distinct signatures, sir, all showing the same mathematical patterns we saw in the Kuiper Belt." Jennifer felt her throat tighten. "They're coming closer." "Yes," Morrison said quietly. "And now we know we were right to build Project Terminus. Captain Adams, Dr. Wright, your new mission begins now. Whatever these entities are, they're about to discover that humanity isn't as helpless as they might think." As alarms began to sound throughout the facility, Jennifer looked again at the hologram of Project Terminus. What had seemed beautiful moments ago now looked different, more like what it truly was, a weapon of last resort, built by a species that refused to go quietly into the night. The warning signs were clear now. Humanity's first contact with an alien intelligence wasn't going to be peaceful. But thanks to Project Terminus, it wouldn't be humanity's last contact either. They had built something that could shake the foundations of reality itself. Now they just had to hope it would be enough. Lieutenant Susan Martinez couldn't tear her eyes away from the sight before her. The being, if it could be called that, filled the entire command center with soft, blue-white light. It had no solid form, shifting and flowing like water made of starlight. "I am the Herald." It spoke, its voice somehow coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. "I speak for those who ruled this universe before your kind learned to make fire." Susan's hand stayed near her weapon, though she knew it would be useless against something like this. Around her, other military personnel stood frozen, watching the impossible creature that had appeared in their secure bunker as if the thick concrete walls meant nothing. At the same time, across the world, the same scene was playing out in every major military installation. The Herald had come to deliver a message, and it wanted all of Earth's defenders to hear it. Commander Eric Thompson stepped forward, his voice steady despite the situation. "I am authorized to speak on behalf of the United States military. State your purpose." The Herald's light pulsed gently. "Your species has been noticed. Your attempts at technological advancement have drawn attention. The Elder Gods require your realm for their own purposes." Susan watched as Commander Thompson maintained his composure. They had trained for first contact scenarios, but nothing had prepared them for this. While Thompson kept the Herald's attention, she slowly moved toward the emergency communications panel. They needed to alert Project Terminus. "We are a sovereign species," Thompson replied carefully. "We do not submit to external rule." The Herald's light darkened slightly, taking on a purple tinge. "You misunderstand. This is not a negotiation. The Elder Gods do not negotiate with lesser beings. They simply take what they require." Susan reached the communications panel and pressed the hidden sequence of buttons. Somewhere, deep in the Nevada facility, alarms would be sounding. She hoped Captain Adams and her team were ready. The Herald continued, its light spreading further across the room. Your species has shown promise. You will be preserved, studied, and perhaps even elevated to serve the Elder Gods. This is a great honor. And if we refuse this honor? Thompson asked. The temperature in the room dropped suddenly. Frost formed on the monitors and windows. The Herald's light became almost painfully bright. Refusal is not an option you possess, it stated. Even now, the Elder Gods approach. They will reshape this realm to their liking. Your cooperation will determine only whether your species survives this transition. Susan felt her tablet vibrate. A message from Lieutenant Cooper in navigation. Project Terminus tracking multiple massive objects entering the solar system. Energy signatures off the charts. Thompson must have received the same message because his expression hardened. Perhaps, he said slowly, your Elder Gods should be careful what they reach for. They might not like what reaches back. The Herald's light flickered, showing the first sign of uncertainty. You dare to threaten. An alarm blared throughout the facility, cutting off the Herald's words. Susan couldn't help but smile slightly. The prototype defense systems she'd helped design were coming online. What is this? The Herald demanded, its form wavering. This energy signature. Impossible. Your kind cannot possess such technology. Through the facility's windows, Susan could see a strange ripple passing through the air, like heat waves on a summer day. The Herald's light began to fragment, breaking apart like scattered reflections. You have made a grave mistake, it announced, its voice becoming distorted. The Elder Gods will not be gentle and fair. The Herald vanished mid-sentence as the defense field fully activated. In the sudden darkness, emergency lights clicked on, bathing everything in red. Status report, Thompson barked. Susan checked her systems. Defense field holding, sir. Whatever that thing was, it couldn't maintain its form inside our quantum barrier. Get me Admiral Morrison, Thompson ordered, and someone find out if that thing appeared anywhere else. The next few hours were chaos. Reports flooded in from around the world. The Herald had appeared simultaneously in hundreds of locations, delivering the same message. And everywhere, it had been forced out by humanity's hastily activated defenses. In the Nevada facility, Captain Adams and Dr. Wright worked frantically to analyze the data from the Herald's appearance. Susan had been called in to help, her expertise with the defense systems proving crucial. The energy readings are like nothing we've ever seen, Dr. Wright explained, pointing to his screens. It's as if that thing existed in multiple dimensions at once. But our defenses worked, Susan pointed out. The quantum barriers forced it back into a single-dimensional state, and it couldn't maintain cohesion. Captain Adams nodded, which means Project Terminus might actually work, if we can disrupt their multi-dimensional existence on a larger scale. Their discussion was interrupted by Admiral Morrison's arrival. His face was grim. The Herald reappeared, he announced. In orbit this time. It's broadcasting a message to every electronic device on Earth. He pressed a button, and the Herald's voice filled the room. Children of Earth, you have demonstrated unexpected capabilities. The Elder Gods offer you one final chance. You have 72 hours to surrender your realm. Resist, and you will witness power beyond your comprehension. The message ended, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. 3 days, Susan said quietly. They're giving us 3 days before they attack. Admiral Morrison's expression was steel. No, they're giving us 3 days to prepare Project Terminus. Lieutenant Martinez, you'll coordinate with the defense teams. Captain Adams, Dr. Wright, get to the orbital station. I want our ultimate weapon ready before the deadline. As they rushed to their assignments, Susan couldn't help but wonder if even Project Terminus would be enough. They had hurt the Herald's pride today, showing that humanity wasn't as helpless as it had assumed. But soon they would face the Elder Gods themselves. She looked at her tablet one last time before heading to the command center. The navigation sensors showed massive objects approaching from the outer solar system, warping space around them as they moved. The real test was coming. Humanity had surprised the Herald, but the Elder Gods wouldn't be so easily impressed. Everything would depend on Project Terminus, and the desperate hope that humanity's greatest weapon could stand against beings that had ruled the universe since before Earth existed. Susan straightened her uniform and walked faster. They had work to do, and only 72 hours to do it. General Christopher Baker stood before the emergency meeting of world leaders, his uniform perfectly pressed despite being awake for the past 36 hours. The large screen behind him showed a countdown. 47, 13, 22 remaining until the Elder God's deadline. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, you've all seen the Herald's message. You've all read the reports. Now you need to make a decision. The United Nations Security Chamber was packed. Every nation had sent their highest-ranking officials. Fear hung thick in the air. Some of you want to surrender, Baker continued. You think we can't win against beings this powerful. You're wrong. We've been preparing for this moment for years. Dr. Mary Johnson stepped forward, her tablet displaying complex diagrams. Her usual lab coat had been replaced by a formal suit, but her eyes showed the same intense focus she brought to all her work on Project Terminus. The artificial intelligence systems we've developed can predict and counter the Elder God's dimensional manipulation, she explained. We've already proven this works against their Herald. A murmur ran through the crowd. The Chinese premier stood up, but the Herald was just one entity. The sensors show hundreds of massive objects approaching Earth. How can we fight them all? Mary nodded to General Baker, who pressed a button. The screen changed to show a massive space station orbiting Earth, Project Terminus in all its glory. Because of this, Baker said firmly, the most powerful weapon humanity has ever built, a device capable of rewriting the laws of physics themselves within its range. In high orbit, far above this meeting, final preparations were underway. Captain Jennifer Adams floated through the station's main control room, checking readouts and testing systems. The station hummed with power that shouldn't have been possible by any known laws of physics. Back in the security chamber, voices rose in argument. The Russian president slammed his hand on the table. You kept this secret from the rest of the world. He demanded, a weapon this powerful. We kept it secret from everyone, Baker replied calmly, including the Elder Gods. That's why it's our best chance. Dr. Johnson stepped forward again. We don't have time for arguments. The AI systems need full global cooperation to work properly. Every nation's computing power, every satellite network. We need it all. The debate raged for hours, but in the end, the choice was clear. No one wanted to surrender Earth to beings that saw humans as little more than interesting pets. In her laboratory beneath the Nevada desert, Mary worked frantically to integrate the world's computer systems. Screens surrounded her, showing progress bars and connection status from different nations. Her team of programmers worked beside her, their fingers flying over keyboards. The quantum processors are online, one of them called out. Asian network integrated. Mary nodded, not looking up from her work. The AI systems they'd developed were beyond anything publicly known. Neural networks that could think in multiple dimensions, quantum computers that could predict probable futures. A soft chime indicated an incoming call. It was General Baker. Dr. Johnson. His voice came through clearly. We're detecting movement from the Elder Gods' fleet. They're not waiting for the deadline. Mary felt her heart skip. How long? Hours, not days. They're accelerating toward Earth. All of them. She looked at her screens. The integration was only at 67%. We need more time, she said. We don't have it, Baker replied grimly. Do what you can. I'm authorizing Project Terminus to begin power-up sequences. In orbit, Captain Adams received the same news. She floated to the main control room's window, looking out at Earth below. Already, she could see strange distortions in space, like heat waves in the distance. The elder gods were coming. All personnel to battle stations, she announced over the intercom. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. The station's corridors filled with activity as crews rushed to their posts. Engineers ran final checks on systems that defied conventional physics. Weapons officers powered up arrays that could tear holes in reality itself. Back in her lab, Mary's screen suddenly lit up with warnings. The Herald had returned, appearing simultaneously in every major city on Earth. Your time runs short. Its voice echoed through every speaker, every phone, every electronic device. The Great Ones approach. Your defiance has earned their personal attention. Submit now, or... The Herald's message cut off abruptly as one of Mary's programs activated. She allowed herself a small smile. They were getting better at dealing with multi-dimensional intrusions. But her smile faded as new alerts popped up. The sensors tracking the Elder God's approach showed them accelerating even faster. Space itself seemed to twist around their massive forms. General Baker, she called. The integration is at 82%. It will have to be enough. If we wait any longer. Understood. Baker's voice was firm. Send what you have to Project Terminus. Captain Adams. Standing by, sir. Adams replied from orbit. Begin the activation sequence. Dr. Johnson, initiate your AI systems. Let's show these elder gods that humanity isn't as primitive as they think. Mary took a deep breath and entered the final commands. Around the world, thousands of computers linked together, forming a neural network beyond anything previously achieved. In orbit, Project Terminus began to glow with impossible energies. Through the station's windows, Captain Adams watched as space itself seemed to shiver. The elder gods were almost here. Humanity's greatest gamble was about to be tested. She thought back to the Herald's first appearance, its casual dismissal of human capabilities. Soon, very soon, it would learn just how wrong it had been. All systems online, she reported. Project Terminus is ready. Very well. General Baker's voice was steady. Humanity stands its ground. Let them come. In the vast darkness of space, the elder gods approach, their forms defying mortal comprehension. But waiting for them was humanity's answer, a weapon built to shake the foundations of reality itself. The real battle was about to begin. Humanity had chosen to fight rather than submit. Now they would learn if their defiance had been wisdom or foolishness. Mary watched her screens as the final connections fell into place. The AI systems were as ready as they'd ever be. She sent a final message to Captain Adams. Make it count. The countdown reached 0. The elder gods arrived. And Project Terminus prepared to show them exactly what humanity was capable of. Major John Phillips felt Project Terminus vibrate beneath his feet as its main reactor reached full power. Through the command center's reinforced windows, he could see the fabric of space rippling around the station. Dr. Catherine White stood beside him, her hands flying over the weapon control panels. Main cannon charging, she reported. Quantum field stabilizers at maximum. We're as ready as we'll ever be. The elder gods approached like massive storms in space, each one larger than Earth itself. Their forms twisted reality, making it hard to look at them directly. Colors that shouldn't exist flickered around their edges. This is Major Phillips to all stations. John spoke into the command system. Remember your training. We're about to make history, or die trying. The first elder god moved closer, its vast form blocking out the stars. A voice echoed through every mind on the station, ancient and powerful. Interesting, it said. The lesser beings have built a toy. Dr. White's hands tightened on her controls. Primary targeting systems locked. Sir. John nodded. Show them what this toy can do. Catherine pressed the firing sequence. Project Terminus hummed louder, and a beam of pure white light shot from its main cannon. Where it struck the elder god's form, reality itself seemed to tear. The vast being recoiled, its mental voice showing surprise for the first time. Impossible. You cannot. A second shot hit the same spot. This time, The elder god's form wavered, parts of it seeming to collapse in on themselves. Other elder gods moved forward, their attention now fully focused on the station. "They're surrounding us," one of the sensor operators called out. "Multiple dimensional breaches detected." John grabbed the command rail as the station shook. "Dr. White, initiate the barrier fields." Catherine's fingers danced across her console. Around Project Terminus, layers of energy fields sprang to life. Not just physical shields, but barriers that protected the very fabric of reality around the station. On Earth, Dr. Mary Johnson watched through the station's cameras, her eye systems processing data faster than any human could follow. "Major Phillips," she called through the comm system, "the eye predicts they're going to try a dimensional collapse. Adjust your shield frequencies to match the numbers I'm sending." The station shook again as the elder gods attacked. Beams of impossible energy struck the barriers. Space itself buckled and warped around them. "Shields holding," Catherine reported. "The new frequencies are working, but our power reserves are dropping fast." John watched as more elder gods joined the attack. Their massive forms moved with impossible grace, coordinating their assault on the human station that dared to stand against them. "The lesser beings show spirit," the mental voice boomed again. But spirit is not enough. A new attack hit them, different from the others. John felt reality trying to unravel around him. Warning alarms blared throughout the station. "They're trying to erase us from existence," Catherine said, her voice tight with concentration as she worked her controls. "Shifting us between dimensions." "Not today," John growled. "Activate the temporal anchors. All power to the main cannon." Project Terminus reactor screamed as it pushed beyond its designed limits. The station's hull groaned under forces that shouldn't have been possible to survive. But it did survive. More than that, it fought back. The main cannon fired again and again, each shot more powerful than the last. Where they struck, the elder gods' forms became unstable, parts of them collapsing into normal space-time. "It burns," the mental voice thundered. "The lesser beings have created something new. Something dangerous." More elder gods appeared, drawn by the battle. Project Terminus was now surrounded by dozens of them, each one powerful enough to destroy planets. Catherine looked at her power readings and frowned. "Sir, we can't keep this up forever. Even with the reactor at maximum, we're going to run out of energy eventually." John nodded. He had known this might happen. "Send the signal to Earth. Tell them to initiate Phase 2. Catherine's eyes widened. "Sir, that hasn't been tested. We don't know if." "We're out of options," John cut her off. "Send it." In her laboratory, Mary Johnson received the signal. She took a deep breath and activated her final program, the one they had hoped they wouldn't need. Every computer on Earth, every satellite, every power station, everything connected to their global network began channeling energy to Project Terminus. The station's power readings jumped off the charts. "Energy surge detected," Catherine called out. "Power levels rising beyond maximum. The reactor is—" "Sir, these readings don't make sense anymore." John smiled grimly. "They're about to make even less sense. Target the largest concentration of elder gods and fire everything we have." Project Terminus lit up like a new star. Its main cannon fired a beam so bright it was visible from Earth's surface. Where it struck, reality didn't just tear, it shattered. The elder gods reeled back, their mental voice now filled with something new. Fear. "Stop this," they commanded. "You do not understand what you are doing." "We understand perfectly," John replied, though he knew they could hear him. "We're showing you that humanity isn't as helpless as you thought." The station fired again. This time, 3 elder gods simply vanished, their forms collapsing completely as Project Terminus rewrote the laws of physics around them. "The lesser beings must be stopped," the mental voice boomed. "They cannot be allowed to wield such power." But their attacks were weakening. More elder gods disappeared as the station's weapons found their marks. The creatures that had ruled the universe since before Earth existed We're learning a harsh lesson about underestimating humanity. Catherine checked her readings again. Sir, whatever they're doing from Earth, it's working. Power levels are still climbing. Good, John said, because I think it's time we showed them our real capabilities. Dr. White, remove all safety limitations from the main cannon. Let's see what Project Terminus can really do. As Catherine entered the commands, the station began to change. Panels shifted, revealing weapons that had been hidden until now. The reactor's hum became a roar that vibrated through the entire structure. The Elder Gods were about to learn why humanity had named their greatest weapon Terminus. The end was coming, but not for Earth. Colonel Richard Taylor watched the sky turn strange colors above New York City. The Elder Gods might be fighting Project Terminus in space, but they hadn't forgotten about Earth. Dark shapes moved through the clouds, defying normal physics as they descended toward the ground. All units, hold your positions, he ordered through his command radio. Wait for them to get closer. His forces were spread throughout the city, hidden in buildings and underground. They had weapons that no one had seen before, devices rushed from secret labs around the world. Whether they would work was another question entirely. Lieutenant Amanda Cooper's voice came through his headset. Sir, navigation is picking up some weird readings. The Elder Gods aren't just attacking. They're trying to change the city itself. Richard looked up and saw she was right. Buildings were starting to twist, their straight lines becoming curved as reality bent under alien influence. The air felt thick, like breathing soup. Witness our power. A voice boomed in everyone's minds. Your orbital weapon may resist, but your cities will fall. A massive shape emerged from the clouds, the Voidwalker, one of the Elder Gods' greatest warriors. It looked like a storm made of eyes and darkness, spreading across the sky. Richard smiled grimly. Now, he ordered. All across the city, hidden devices activated. Reality stabilized as thousands of small quantum anchors came online, protecting their areas from the Elder Gods' influence. The Voidwalker's form wavered as it hit these protected zones. What is this? It demanded. More of your tricks. Lieutenant Cooper, Richard called. Are you reading this? In her navigation center below the city, Amanda studied her screens. The quantum anchors were working better than expected, creating safe zones throughout New York. But the Voidwalker was already adapting, its form changing to bypass their defenses. Sir, it's learning, she reported. But I'm seeing a pattern in how it moves, if we time this right. Do it, Richard ordered. Amanda's fingers flew over her controls. The quantum anchors changed frequency in a complex pattern, one she had discovered by studying the Elder Gods' dimensional travel. The Voidwalker suddenly found itself trapped, caught between different layers of reality. Now, Richard shouted. Ground forces emerged from hiding, carrying weapons that looked more like scientific equipment than guns. They fired beams of focused quantum energy, the same technology that powered Project Terminus, but on a smaller scale. The Voidwalker screamed in their minds as the beams struck it. Parts of its form collapsed, forced into normal space-time where they couldn't exist. Other cities will not be so fortunate, it raged as it retreated back into the clouds. Richard checked his global command screen. The Voidwalker was right. Other cities were under attack. But they were ready too. Humanity had prepared for this fight in ways the Elder Gods hadn't expected. In London, Paris, Tokyo, and dozens of other cities, similar battles played out. Quantum anchors protected vital areas while ground forces fought back against beings that should have been impossible to fight. Sir, Amanda's voice was urgent. We've got a problem. The Voidwalker isn't retreating. It's calling for help. New shapes appeared in the sky, more Elder God warriors joining the battle. The air grew even stranger as their combined power pressed against humanity's defenses. Your resistance is impressive, their voices echoed together. But futile. Reality cracked around the edges of the quantum anchor zones. Buildings that weren't protected began to transform, turning into shapes that hurt to look at. People ran for the safety of the protected areas as the city warped around them. Colonel Taylor. It was Dr. Mary Johnson calling from her lab. Project Terminus is fully powered now. We're going to try something new. Get your people into the anchor zones. Richard didn't waste time asking questions. All units, fall back to protected areas. Whatever's coming, let it come. They barely made it. The Elder God warriors were pressing their attack, their combined power starting to overwhelm even the quantum anchors. Richard watched as parts of New York twisted into impossible shapes, buildings turning inside out and streets folding in on themselves. Then Project Terminus fired. From orbit, a beam of pure white light struck the center of the city. But instead of causing destruction, it spread out in a wave of energy that restored reality to normal wherever it touched. The Elder God warriors screamed as their changes were undone. "Lieutenant Cooper," Richard called. "What just happened?" Amanda's voice was filled with awe. "They did it, sir. Project Terminus isn't just fighting the Elder Gods. It's rewriting the rules they use to change our reality. They can't transform anything in the affected areas anymore." The Voidwalker rallied its forces for another attack, but now they were fighting in purely physical space. Their powers were limited, their ability to warp reality canceled by Project Terminus's influence. "Keep them busy," Richard ordered his forces. "Don't let them adapt to this." The battle raged on, but now humanity was pushing back. Similar energy waves spread out from Project Terminus, protecting cities around the world. The Elder Gods found their greatest weapons, their ability to reshape reality itself, being systematically canceled out. "Your weapon." The Voidwalker's voice held a new tone, respect mixed with fear. "It should not be possible." "You made a mistake," Richard said, knowing they could hear him. "You thought we were primitive because we were young, but that just meant we didn't know what was impossible." More beams fired from orbit as Project Terminus continued its work. The Elder God warriors were forced to retreat, their powers failing as humanity's technology rewrote the laws of physics around Earth. Amanda's voice came through again. "Sir, they're pulling back. The Voidwalker and its forces are returning to the main Elder God fleet." Richard watched the sky clear, the strange colors fading back to normal blue. Around him, New York slowly recovered from the battle. Buildings straightened, streets unfolded, and reality settled back into its proper shape. But he knew this wasn't over. The Elder Gods were learning, adapting. Project Terminus had surprised them again, but they would be back. And next time, they would bring their full power to bear. "All units," he ordered, "begin recovery operations. Help civilians, secure damaged areas. But stay alert." This was just the first wave. He looked up at the sky where Project Terminus orbited, invisible from the ground but protecting them all. The real battle was still to come. The Elder Gods would return, and Earth would need every weapon, every innovation, every bit of human determination to survive what came next. The ground battle was over, but the war for humanity's future was just beginning. Captain Jennifer Adams watched as the Elder Gods gathered for their final assault. Their vast forms blocked out entire star fields, making space itself twist around them. Project Terminus hummed with power, its systems pushed far beyond their original design limits. "They're forming a pattern," Major John Phillips said, studying the tactical displays, "like nothing we've seen before." The Elder Gods had learned from their earlier defeats. Now they moved together, their powers combining in ways that made the station's sensors scream warnings. The Overseer, largest of them all, led the formation. "Your defiance ends now," the Overseer's voice boomed in their minds. "We will not be denied by lesser beings." Jennifer checked her readings. Their power levels are off the charts. Whatever they're planning, it's big. On Earth, Dr. Mary Johnson worked frantically at her controls. The global network of computers processed data at impossible speeds, trying to predict what the Elder Gods would do next. Her screens filled with warning messages. "Captain Adams," she called through the comm system. "They're going to try to erase Project Terminus from reality itself. Not just destroy it. Make it so it never existed. Jennifer felt a chill run down her spine. Can they do that? Theoretically, yes, Mary replied. But we planned for this. Remember the quantum core? Jennifer nodded slowly. Of course, the heart of Project Terminus, the one component they had kept secret even from most of the station's own crew. She turned to John. Major Phillips, begin quantum core activation sequence. John's eyes widened. That's never been tested at full power. The simulations showed. We're out of options. Jennifer cut him off. Do it. As John began the activation sequence, the Elder Gods struck. Their combined power hit Project Terminus like a tidal wave of unreality. Parts of the station began to fade, becoming transparent as they were erased from existence. Quantum anchors failing. Someone shouted, "We're losing structural integrity." Jennifer grabbed her command rail as the station shook. Reroute all power to the core. Mary, are you ready down there? In her lab, Mary's fingers flew over her controls. Global network is at maximum capacity. Every computer on Earth is linked in. Beginning quantum core initialization. Now, deep in the heart of Project Terminus, something impossible happened. The quantum core activated, creating a bubble of pure human-made reality around the station. Inside this bubble, the laws of physics weren't just protected. They were whatever humanity wanted them to be. The Elder Gods' irrational attempt stopped as it hit this bubble of pure human will. Their mental voices showed surprise for the first time. Impossible, the Overseer declared. You cannot control reality itself. Watch us, Jennifer replied. She turned to John. Fire the main cannon. Full power. Project Terminus's main weapon fired, but this time it was different. The beam wasn't just energy. It was pure human determination given form. Where it struck the Elder Gods' formation, it didn't just damage them. It rewrote the rules they lived by. Now you understand. The Overseer's voice held a new tone. Fear. You have created something that should not be. We created what we needed to survive, Jennifer answered. Mary, status of the quantum core. Stable and growing. Mary's voice was excited. The bubble is expanding. We can push them back. The Elder Gods tried to retreat, but Project Terminus' influence followed them. More of their powers failed as human-defined physics spread through space. Their vast forms began to shrink, forced to obey the laws of reality as humanity wrote them. This cannot be allowed, the Overseer declared. We will not be bound by lesser beings' rules. But they had no choice. Project Terminus fired again and again, each shot expanding the bubble of human reality. The Elder Gods found themselves trapped in a universe that no longer bent to their will. Wait, the Overseer called out as its form continued to shrink. We will negotiate. Jennifer shared a look with John. This was what they had hoped for, but never really expected. She opened a channel to Earth. General Baker, did you get that? We heard. Baker's voice was firm. Tell them our terms. Jennifer faced the view screen, looking at the now diminished forms of the Elder Gods. You will leave Earth's space, all of it, forever. You will never again interfere with human development. And you will acknowledge humanity as equals, not lesser beings. The Overseer's form flickered as it considered these demands. Around it, other Elder Gods were already retreating, forced back by Project Terminus' expanding influence. And if we refuse? Jennifer's finger hovered over the firing control. Then we finish what we started. We've proven we can rewrite the laws of reality. Do you really want to see how far we'll go to protect ourselves? There was a long moment of silence. Then, slowly, the Overseer began to retreat. We accept your terms. Humanity has proven itself. Unexpected. One by one, the Elder Gods withdrew, their once vast forms now barely larger than Earth's moon. Project Terminus' quantum bubble continued to expand, ensuring they couldn't return to their full power anywhere near Earth's space. In her lab, Mary watched her readings with satisfaction. The quantum core is stable. We can maintain this bubble indefinitely now. Earth is safe. Jennifer finally allowed herself to relax slightly. They had done it. Humanity had stood against beings that had ruled the universe since before Earth existed, and won. Captain Adams, General Baker called from Earth. Well done, all of you. Humanity owes you a debt we can never repay. Jennifer looked out at the stars. Normal, stable stars now, obeying physics that humans could understand and control. The elder gods were gone, driven back by human innovation and determination. No debts, she replied. We just did what humans always do, found a way to survive. Project Terminus continued to orbit Earth, its quantum core maintaining the bubble of human-controlled reality. It stood as both protection and warning, humanity's answer to any who would threaten their existence. The elder gods had learned a valuable lesson. Never underestimate a species that refused to accept the impossible. Humanity had taken the laws of reality itself and rewritten them. They had faced gods and forced them to retreat. And if any other cosmic powers were watching, they now knew. Earth was protected, not by ancient powers or cosmic laws, but by something far more dangerous: human determination and ingenuity. The war was over. Humanity had won, and the universe would never be the same.